Hello and welcome. This is Out Motorsports. My name is Jake and this is the 2021 Honda Ridgeline Sport. Now, modern half-ton trucks have gotten really big, and they're kind of to the point where a lot of people buying a truck may not actually need something that large. And you're gonna think I'm kind of nuts for saying this, but truly, the 2021 Ridgeline is probably all the truck you actually need, unless you're towing a whole bunch of weight or routinely hauling something like 4x8 sheets of plywood where you need that really big bed. So let's talk about what this 2021 Ridgeline is, and then we'll actually get out on the road with it and see how it tows at its rated limits. And before we get too far into this, please take a second and subscribe to the channel right here on YouTube. We would love to have more support. Most of the people watching these videos are not subscribed yet, so please take a second and subscribe. The more support we have, the more fun stuff we can do with trucks like this Ridgeline. Bunch of fun cars, motorsports, old cars, more new cars, you name it, we want to do it. So thank you for all the support. Now on to the Ridgeline. Like I said, this is the 2021 Ridgeline. This is the second generation of Ridgeline, and it came out a few years ago, but Honda changed the looks of this truck for 2021. I think a lot of people felt like the Ridgeline was a little too close in looks to the Pilot and the Passport on which it is based. But that's not to say it's not a capable vehicle. Every Ridgeline for 2021 is rated to pull 5,000 pounds of trailer weight, and they're all rated for 1,583 pounds of payload. So they're not wimpy trucks. They are a very solid competitor in the mid-size class, and that includes things like the Ford Ranger, the Toyota Tacoma, and the Jeep Gladiator. So, of course, we have to talk about what is different with the Ridgeline versus all those competitors. And the first thing is this is a unibody truck. Yes, there's no frame here. It is a unibody structure. And some people are gonna say that's a bad thing, but truly, if you're not taking this thing too far off-road, it's actually not that bad. Now, as far as what powers the 2021 Ridgeline, every Ridgeline is powered by the same 3.5 liter J-Series Honda V6. In this case, it makes 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. Now, the horsepower, 280 horsepower, is made at 6,000 RPM against a redline of about 6,600. So you do have to wind it out pretty good to make that max horsepower, and all of its maximum torque is achieved at 4,700 RPM. So no matter what, you are revving this thing a little bit to get all the power and torque out of it. That's just what you're gonna get with the J-Series. The J-Series, for reference, is in pretty much every other Honda that's got a V6, and it does date back quite a ways to the old Acura TL in particular, which everyone in the enthusiast world seems to love. So this is a J35, and it makes 280 horsepower. Every Ridgeline comes with all-wheel drive. It is a front-biased all-wheel drive setup, but it runs as all-wheel drive, and it can shoot up to 70% of the power to the rear wheels. And then of that 70% of the power back here, it can send 100% of the 70% to one wheel or the other based on where your traction needs are. You do not get a low-range gearbox for off-roading, and you don't get locking differentials. So this is not gonna take you super duper far off-road, but for the sake of what a lot of people are doing, if you're going camping, you wanna explore some light trails, go down some service roads, things like that, this will get you pretty far. And of course, the missing piece of all of this is the transmission. Every Ridgeline has that 3.5 liter V6 paired to Honda's 9-speed automatic. And every Ridgeline with this 9-speed transmission comes with a heavy-duty transmission cooler as standard. So for the sake of setting one of these up to tow, you really don't have to do anything special because they're all ready to do it. They're all set up the same way no matter which trim you get. Now, this one is the base sport trim. This is the lowest trim level of Ridgeline you can get, which honestly, I'm glad we've got, because usually with all these loans for test vehicles, they come fairly loaded up. So it's nice to see what the very basic model is. This is called the Sport. This is gonna be your very basic trim. It does have cloth seats that are not heated. It does not have a sunroof. It has a plastic steering wheel, not a leather steering wheel. It does have a decent sound system with a subwoofer, power windows and locks, power mirrors, a lot of stuff that's standard at this point, and it does have some elements of the Honda Sensing Driver Assistance Suite, although you do not get blind spot monitoring. That is something that you will get on the upper trim levels that start right above this Sport with the RTL. The other thing that this particular Ridgeline does have is the Hpd package. That is optional on every Ridgeline for 2021, and it adds a few things of interest. It is totally a visual package. The biggest thing that you will notice with the Hpd is these bronze wheels. These are unique wheels to the Hpd package, and they are available on all trims. When you get the Hpd package, you get these wheels, you get the same tires that you get whether you get the Hpd or not. they are an all-season, not an all-terrain. They've got some aggressive little blocks here on the sidewalls, but they're truly just an all-season highway sort of tire. Otherwise, you get a unique grille up front, you get these black plastic fender flares, and you get some decals on the bed at the back, and a cute little badge on the tailgate. Now, this all adds a lot to the looks of the Ridgeline when you get the HPD package, but it is a $2,800 package, which personally I find a little bit much for what amounts to wheels and a grille and some stickers. So if you don't get the HPD package, you can actually move up from the Sport trim to the next level up, which is called the RTL, and that gets you heated seats, it gets you a sunroof, and it gets you blind spot monitoring. All things that I really wish this particular truck had. So if I was personally buying it, while I do like the looks of this with the flares and the wheels, I think I'd probably skip it and spend the same amount of money to get the RTL. But this 2021 Ridgeline Sport with HPD package comes in right around $40,000. Like I said, the HPD package adds $2,800 to the cost, and if you skip that, you can get this basic Ridgeline Sport for about $36,000 and change. So with all that, let's get a trailer hooked up and see how this thing actually is to drive. We've got my friend Taylor's 18-foot steel open deck trailer, and it comes in at about 2,000 pounds. With the car on the back, we will be right up at that 5,000 pound tow capacity. So let's hook this thing up and see how the 2021 Ridgeline actually is to tow with as a tow vehicle. All right, so towing with the 2021 Honda Ridgeline Sport with HPD package. I mentioned all of these Ridgelines for 2021 are gonna be able to tow the same amount of weight regardless of your options and trim level, and that is correct. That is 5,000 pounds with 600 pounds of tongue weight, which is 12%. So nice that Honda has accounted for that instead of sticking to like a 10% number. Now, what you won't get on any Ridgeline for 2021 is a built-in trailer brake controller, and that's very important to have, especially if you're pulling toward the top end of this vehicle's rated weight. So you've got a couple options. In the glove box, Honda does include a wiring harness that will extend the connector that is built in under the dashboard, so you can wire in whatever trailer brake controller you want. You can have it stuck down here or somewhere in the center, wherever you want to put it. The other option is to use something like what I'm using, which is called a Tekonsha Prodigy Rf. So this actually goes between the trailer and the Ridgeline, plugs inline back there, and then it uses a wireless remote plugged into your 12-volt power socket up front to actually talk to the brake controller. So really nice, you don't have to modify any wiring at all to use it, which is great when I'm bouncing around different vehicles. But if you've got a couple different tow vehicles and you want to do the same thing, it's really nice, it's worth the cost because you don't have to buy several brake controllers. Now you'll notice I'm using the paddle shifters here. Honda does have a drive mode and then they have a sport mode, which some people call sequential. And getting on the interstate, the maximum power of this Ridgeline is made at about 6,000 RPM, and maximum torque isn't even made till about 4,700 RPM, so you really do have to wind it out to get it moving, you know, with a lot of sense of urgency when you've got the trailer hooked up. Granted, it's fine around town if you leave it in drive, but if you're going to hustle down an on-ramp like I just did, pull out to pass someone, you probably want to hit the button down here to put it in S for sport, and they all have paddle shifters behind the steering wheel, so you can also shift the gears manually, which is really nice, especially if you are trying to approach a hill or something where you know you need a downshift, a gear or 2 or 3, based on how steep the hill might be. This will let you do it ahead of time and, you know, spool the engine up, get it ready to go, so that way you're not just waiting for the transmission to decide on its own that you need a downshift. As far as general chassis stability, this does have a 125-inch wheelbase, which is pretty long. It is going to be longer than a lot of the mid-size to small, large SUVs. When you think of like a Chevy Tahoe or a Ford Expedition, those are about 120, 122 inches, and this is about 125.2. So you do get a little bit of extra wheelbase, which helps a lot with stability. Generally, the longer the wheelbase, the more stable the vehicle will be. And obviously, when you're pulling an open trailer like I am right now, you don't particularly have to worry because the aerodynamic effects are not so great. But if you're pulling a boat or an enclosed trailer, you do want to be cautious of your aerodynamics, and thus a little extra wheelbase never hurt anybody. I don't know if I'd want to put an enclosed trailer behind this for more than a few miles, truly not because of the aerodynamic effects. I think stability-wise, this truck is long enough to handle it, but I think you are going to run into some frustration with the drivetrain. You hear it, I'm really winding it out. That was not even a super large incline, and it is working hard just to get back up to 60 after that on-ramp and, you know, maintain highway speed. It's going to be fine with an open trailer, but with an enclosed, you've just got a lot of wind resistance that might make it work quite a bit harder, and you're just going to be hearing that V6 sing, which it's not a terrible noise, but regardless. Now, the other thing worth mentioning with this Ridgeline is payload. Honda is very careful to mention that your 5,000 pound tow capacity is only if you've got one person in the vehicle. If you've got more people, they want you to decrease how much you're towing based on how many people are in the vehicle. It's listed in the owner's manual. It's just a simple calculation based on your payload capacity, which is 1,583 pounds. And, you know, it's fine, but if you're going to a track weekend, you have to remember, if you've got wheels and tires and tools in the bed of this, you are going to have to consider your payload, because it will reduce some of that down, and the 1583 number does get cut by your tongue weight as well. So, you know, you really have to think about that and just make sure you load this thing carefully. There is a nice feature of the Ridgeline. It's not new this year, but all the Ridgelines have an in-bed trunk. So when you open the bed, you can then open the floor of the bed and put some things in there. It's where the spare tire is. It's a space saver spare, but then there's this big well, and it's really neat because it's pretty deep. And earlier this morning, I was actually hauling a bunch of wheels and tires around, and I was able to fit two 17-inch wheels, granted without tires, but still, two 17-inch wheels side by side in the truck bed trunk. So really cool that there's that extra space. Obviously, again, whatever you put in there will affect your payload, but it's nice because it's lockable, it is under the bed. If you're, you know, looking to put your hitch and some tow straps, you know, whatever else you keep day to day, throw it back in there and it's secure and lockable, but it won't take up space in the cab. And then also, space in the cab is pretty good. Honda uses the space in here really, really nicely. You've got a lot of space under the back seats, even when they're down like this, so you can slide things all the way under the back, and then when you put them up, you've got a more or less flat floor. There is the track for the seats to clip into. It does take up a little bit of that. There's a little bump in the floor, but generally it's going to be a pretty decent back seat. And the final piece of this is, of course, why would you buy a Ridgeline versus a body-on-frame midsize truck like a Tacoma, like a Ranger, like a Gladiator? Well, the benefit truly is that this thing rides so well. It is very smooth, very comfortable, especially in the city, especially when it's unloaded. And the nice thing is that even with a trailer hooked up, the damping in here is so well done. Both compression and rebound, it's just a very high quality ride. And part of that is because it is a unibody versus body on frame. You can make a body on frame truck handle well and ride well, but it's not quite as easy to do. And, you know, if you're driving this thing around unloaded more than loaded, not towing more than towing, and you don't have a lot of big hauling needs as far as a longer bed space, because the bed is a little short, it's only 4.5 feet or so, this is really a great truck. I do think the engine is, you know, you're gonna have to be sure it's right for your use, because it's not a torque monster. It really does require you to rev it a little bit, but if you're okay with that, this is just a nice truck to drive around town. I think it is truly all the truck most people need. Unfortunately, a lot of people won't want to buy it because of the stigma of buying a unibody Honda pickup truck, but if you're not willing to even look at it just because of the stigma, you should really, you know, check your identity, because it's just a nice truck. All right, and that is it for this review of the 2021 Honda Ridgeline Sport with Hpd package and the towing test. Thank you so much for coming along today. As always, if you'd like to connect with us elsewhere, we can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Out Motorsports. And if you'd like to connect with other LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors, please head over to outmotorsports.com. We have a whole community over there, and we would love to meet you. Until next time, please stay safe, be well. We'll see you again soon.